Hey everybody, Glenn here again with another episode of Deviation Sports Cards. Just released a video yesterday actually that was talking about CSG and their new grading scale and transition plan. And one of the things I had pointed out was that they had not updated their grading scale definitions for the individual numeric grades. As luck would have it, I saw today that they actually did go in and change their definition. So I thought I'd just make a quick video. Luckily I have the old requirements written down, so we'll just go through real quick what the changes were, and then we'll open it up to comments in the comment section to see what you guys think. So again, as I said last night, if you guys like the content, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. I have picked up a few here lately, so I'd like to keep doing this content, and I really like your guys' support. So please like the video, give me a subscribe if you're enjoying it. So we'll get right into it. So I'm just going to go over to screen share. So here you can see on their website they have increased, or they have updated their grading scale. So if we look at the perfect 10 grade, nothing really changed here. The wording on it is a little bit different, but overall basically it's a perfect 10. Every subgrade category or four grading criteria, as they're now referring to them as, with centers, corners, edges, and surface all being 10. So nothing really changed there. The big change obviously was getting rid of the pristine 10 and going to a gem mint 10, which was like combining the 9.5 gem mint and the pristine 10 into one. Now they did make some pretty significant changes here now that they've updated this. The beginning verbiage here, a gem mint 10 is received a 10 grade overall. However, one of the grading criteria does not meet the requirements of a perfect 10. That remains unchanged. Corners will appear perfect to the naked eye and mint plus under 10 times magnification. The only thing they changed there was this mint plus, so this used to say gem mint. Surface is free of print spots and should also display perfect gloss devoid of any surface flaws. That is actually identical to the old gem mint 9.5 criteria. Now the big change is this right here. Centering is not to exceed approximately 55-45, and reverse centering is not to exceed 75-25. So before, a gem mint had to be 55-45 in one direction and 50-50 in the other direction. So this is a pretty significant change. Gives you a little bit of leeway in both directions from a front centering perspective. The reverse centering is a massive change in my opinion. I don't know what they were using before because they didn't specify it. But essentially, they're saying it can be pretty far off on the back. And I think they're kind of matching PSA here. If you look at PSA's requirements for a gem mint 10, they didn't sell out completely on front centering, which PSA allows up to 60-40 front centering to get a gem mint 10. But they also allow 75-25 on the back. So it seems like a lot of people really just don't give a damn about reverse centering, which I think is kind of weird. It is part of the card, but whatever, I get it. It's not the side you look at generally. So basically they added a notation to reverse centering, matching PSA 75-25 requirement, and then they went from a 55-45 in one direction, 50-50 in the other, to a 55-45 in both directions. So I'm okay with this change. I don't really like the fact that they're so lenient on back centering, but I get it. And I'm glad they didn't go 60-40 on front centering, because then it would have just been a complete joke from my perspective. They'd have just been copycatting PSA completely. So I like the fact that I hate seeing a gem mint 10 that's so far off center. You can see it from across the room, and that's what you get with PSA in some cases. So I'm glad they didn't go all the way on that particular one. Then with the 9.5, this one really kind of bugs me. So I mentioned in my video yesterday that I hate the fact that SGC basically does half grades based on eye appeal. And if you read this, it basically says a Mint 9.5 is a card that displays premium eye appeal for a Mint card. Card qualities such as exceptional centering, Surface qualities, color, and or other key elements can elevate a card to a Mint Plus grade. So essentially, they've done exactly what I hate about SGC's grading scale, which is, well, if you got a 9, it looks good, displays premium eye appeal, quote unquote, then that'll bump it up to a 9.5. So there's really no criteria established for any of the 4 basic grading criteria that specifies the difference between a 9 and a 9.5 other than just premium eye appeal. So I gotta say, I'm not totally in love with that. I think it's a total cop-out. It's going to make it extremely difficult when you're making a decision to send the card in, whether it's a 9 or a 9.5, because to me, this introduces one thing that I didn't think was present in their old scale, which is greater subjectivity. Before, there was always kind of a criteria identified for every one of the 4 grading criteria that is now void from this 9.5 Mint Plus, and it just says, eye appeal. So I think that's going to create a lot of variation from one grader to the next, and I'm not a huge fan. But it is what it is. At least they defined it. So beyond that, sorry about that. My dogs just decided to go apeshit crazy. So after that, we have a Mint 9. Some changes here. If we read it, it says a Mint card will have 4 sharp corners with only minimal wear. That is actually slightly different than the old 9 version. The old 9 version, you say slight minor flaws on the edges may be visible. Centering must be 60-40 or better for the front of the card. So this is, again, a relaxation of the centering requirement. Previously, it had to be 55-45 or better in both directions. Now it's 60-40 or better on the front. So they did relax the front centering requirement on a Mint. And they also went as far as to go 90-10 on the back. So, again, just completely disregarding the back of the card. It can be almost completely off-center, and you're still going to get a 9 at a minimum. So, like I said, it is what it is. Not going to argue too much about that particular one. I don't even really care about the centering. They were very, very, very strict on centering prior to these changes. So I understand the relaxation of those requirements, both with a Gem Mint 10 and with a Mint 9. I don't 100% agree with the reverse centering being so loose. I think, I personally would respect, maybe a 60-40 back centering for a 10 and a 75-25 for a 9, and then, maybe introducing a 90-10 somewhere down in the 8-8-5 range. I think I could respect that a little bit more. But it is what it is. It's not like it's significant enough for me that I'm going to stop using CSG as a result. And then that was the real big change with a Mint 9. Other than that, everything else is pretty much identical to what it was before. And going down through the list, the only other notation that I saw that really changed was a Mint 9. A Near Mint Mint 8. So it used to be that a Near Mint Mint 8 had to have 60-40 or better centering. So obviously with them moving the 60-40 requirement up to a Mint 9, they had to do something with the 8 because it didn't make any sense. So they've basically relaxed the centering on an 8 to 65-35 from what was previously 60-40. And then they maintained that on the 7.5 on the new scale as with the old, and then they switched over to 70-30 on 7. So really, not a lot of changes here to discuss. Like I said, Perfect 10's comparable. Gem Mint relaxed centering pretty significantly. And I wouldn't say pretty significantly. A little bit on the front. They relaxed it by a little bit in both directions, and then they added the reverse centering requirement. Other than that, they didn't really change a whole lot. So, as I said, I'm okay with the change. I'm glad they defined it better. And I think it's fair. It's kind of relaxing it a little bit, but like I said, not going so far that, it doesn't look significantly or visually apparently off-center from a distance. The 9.5 grade, to me, they just completely copped out on this, went purely with eye appeal. To me, this is even more egregious than what SGC does. SGC doesn't, they give, specific criteria for an 8.5 and a 9.5, and it's not till they get down in the 7.5, 6.5, 5.5 range where they just start saying, basically a 7.5 is a 7 with good eye appeal, and a 6.5 is a 6 with good eye appeal. In this particular case, they're doing it all the way up here at a 9.5, and then really don't reference eye appeal anywhere else in the entire grading scale. So it's a little weird, that they're doing that. They don't even, identify eye appeal as a grading criteria anywhere through their scale until now this, new 9.5 that they seem to be really struggling to identify specific criteria for. So anyways, that is what it is. Not a fan at all. I think it's going to create lots of, I look on these forums today and you see a lot of these people, oh, it should have been this, it should have been that, blah, 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 blah. And with CSG, historically, I've always been able to kind of say, well, their definitions are extremely precise. If you do a good job at evaluating your cars before you send them in, there's zero reason you should get a grade that you don't expect to get unless you just clearly miss something. Now, I think there's going to be lots of different arguments about, well, my 9s should have been 9.5s and I didn't get a 9.5 because the grader was in a bad mood. I see that all the time, on PSA posts where, I sent in, fantastic cars, but they didn't get the grades they deserved because the grader was in a bad mood. Well, to me, I think that's a crock of shit. I think people just don't know how to pre-grade their cars in a lot of cases. But in this particular case, maybe that will happen. Maybe, grader just wakes up in a shitty mood and says, you know what, none of these cars look great to me today, so I'm going to give them all 9s. I don't know. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. And then with the Mint 9, like I said, they really just kind of changed the centering, relaxed it a little bit. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think it makes sense. I think the 90-10 is a little extreme on the back for a Mint 9. I think that's setting the bar a little too low in terms of back centering. But again, I can live with it. And then obviously the only other change being this relaxation down here, which again makes sense based on the relaxation they did further up the scale. So overall, I guess from one side, one part of me, I'm excited that they actually went ahead and updated their definitions to make a little bit more sense. I won't be nearly as arrogant to say that, I posted a video yesterday and then lo and behold, they go on there and they update the grading criteria, because to be honest with you, I don't think, that had anything to do with anything, to be 100% honest with you. I guess the point is they updated them. There's definitely more specificity there in terms of what requires what. I like the fact that they changed the centering requirements and made it very specific again as to what centering will get what grade. I like the fact that they didn't go full PSA on the centering with the Gem Mint 10. I like the fact that they relaxed it down through. So the only real thing that I would complain about coming out of this would be just that 9.5 definition. To me is still extremely weak. And I think it's kind of crappy, honestly, that they're going to leave the difference between a 9 and a 9.5 solely up to the subjectivity of the grader and their opinion in regards to eye appeal. Because I think we all know in the collecting community that the sales value of a card from a 9 to a 9.5 is not as significant as a 9.5 to a 10, but it's still relatively significant. So having that solely based on eye appeal to me is kind of ludicrous. So like I said, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm getting ready to send in another bulk order here probably within the next week with some of the other guys from the Deviation Sports Cards group. So it'll be interesting to get those in there, get them back, see what happens. The other thing I'm anxious to see with that particular thing is, CSG has just been destroying their turnaround times here lately. And now that they've done this, I'll be curious to see if they just get buried again. I'm hoping that they've got the infrastructure in place to manage this. because now that there is no subgrade, I mean, a bulk submission is pretty much $12. So it's back down to where it was before. You know, people don't really have to care about the subs anymore. They all like well, I shouldn't say everybody likes the flip better than they like the old flip, but I think probably more so than before, and obviously the Gem 10 will satisfy the bulk of the collecting community. So I'm hoping that they can at least maintain their current turnaround times, not meaning like way ahead of time, but at least their stated times. I think 45 days is fair for a bulk order. I'm hoping that 45 days maintains, even if it actually takes them the full 45 days. I think it's a fair amount of time to wait. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope maybe this clarifies for anybody that's wondering what specifically changed on this new updated criteria between the last one and this one. This will give you a little bit more of an understanding. And like I said, if you like the content, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Look forward to seeing what you guys think in the comments, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.